Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by former Leicester and Brighton defender Matt Heath to have a look at his early game week 1 draft for the 2024-25 season. Matt, how are you?
Morning, Joe. I'm really good, thank you. Really excited to get stuck into a little bit more talking about fantasy football.
Yes, indeed. Now, we last spoke... where were you in the rankings when we last spoke? Because you finished the season 145th, which is amazing, but you were much higher than that, I think, even before we spoke.
From memory, maybe around 300 odd. But yeah, it was a good last few game weeks.
Yeah, it was a good last few games. So you were there was not many points between a lot of the top sort of 100, 200 or so in the rankings.
Unfortunately, I was looking on live FPL. And at half time in game week 38, I was in the top 100.
Wow.
And it just, I know, how weird is it that I was disappointed at the final whistle I wasn't in the top 100? But obviously, you know, after a couple of minutes, I was like, come on, sort yourself out.
That's it was definitely a great achievement. So let's have a look at your career history, because what we're going to do on this video is look at your career history. We're going to talk about Leicester. You played for Leicester and you're a Leicester fan. You know about Leicester. So we'll talk about them. They're new in the Premier League this season, obviously been there many times before. And also the important bit, we'll reveal your team as well. And I'll chat about my team, because as we were talking about on air, my team is quite similar. So I feel quite pleased considering how high you finished last season. Just before we do that, just to plug for the members area, do check out Fantasy Football Scouts members area. Lots of tools and gadgets there and discounts, lots of exciting ways, and there's an app has launched as well, so you've got all of that information at your fingertips. Also, do press that like button, does help us out, and do remember to subscribe, keep up to date with our latest videos and podcasts. Let's have a look at your career history. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's a mixed bag, but the last one is the best. 23-24, 145th, which is amazing. I've never got near that. I've been in the top 1,000, but the other side of that, not this side. And but yeah, lots of other lower down rankings. But you'd have 61k as well. A few around the 100k, 200k. So what was it that was so different last season compared to all of the others?
I think for me, I started to take FPL a little bit more seriously in the 22-23 season.
Okay.
Started to have a little bit more of a scout around on Twitter and listen to content that you guys were creating. And I kind of got into that halfway through the season. So I felt like I was annoyed in a way that I didn't do it right from the beginning and I didn't get onto a proper strategy. And then obviously last season, I kind of tried to plan my whole year and have a little bit of an idea of when I was going to wildcard and free hit, and it obviously fell into place. It didn't actually get as good as it finished off until the last, 10 game weeks, and slowly throughout the whole season I was rising in rank. And I think for me, my last game week was my highest rank of the year, so it was good because I didn't feel like I got to a certain point and then fell off. So for me, I was happy with a steady rise.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, mine was slightly opposite. So I mean, I was sort of hovering around the 20,000 mark, and so I just went for it at the end, and it ended up falling flat. So I removed Isaac, who got a brace, and got.
So you've got to though in that situation, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, I mean, I did top 30k, which is all right. Not 145th, but yeah, it was. You've got to go for that, and one player in particular, I got in Salah because it was Klopp's last game. I like that narrative of that, and we'll talk about Salah, I'm sure, when we come to your team reveal. This season, I think, is going to be slightly different. I don't know whether you've noticed this. Obviously, the pricing is different. The good players are now very expensive. You can't have them all. Also, we've got so much up in the air with these. We always have promoted teams coming up, but they've got sort of new managers now as well, so it's hard to assess them. We'll talk about Leicester in a bit, but you've also got new managers at Chelsea, Liverpool. You've got changes. Another one of your old clubs, Brighton, new manager there. I feel like this season I've never been so unprepared. How do you feel this going into this?
I'm going to put it a different way, Joe. You are prepared, but it's the unknown or the uncertainty around. I'm sure it might make a few people a little bit anxious about picking the right player, but it is what it is. Everyone's in the same boat. There's a lot of preseason games, especially the last I don't know,
Yeah.
week or two that we're going to be having a keen eye on and kind of trying to work out who's going to be in them starting 11s. But ultimately, we don't know how Liverpool are going to perform. We don't know how Chelsea are going to perform. We've got an idea because of the caliber of players they've got, but at the end of the day, we don't actually know. And it's a sit and wait with some. And I'm sure, like we half spoke about, we might take a punt on a big Liverpool asset just because we know he's a good player.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think with that, I just think I can just sense I'm going to wild card early. I just feel I might be wrong. But if I'm right, I mean, if you're right as well, then happy days. But it's like winning the lottery early on this season, I think.
I agree with you. I think we're going to probably talk about the teams a little bit later, but a strategy that I've kind of penciled in is actually to be flexible. With all the uncertainty around, I don't want to commit wholeheartedly to, say, a wildcard 4 or a wildcard 6. I want to keep it a little bit more flexible where if it does go well and I've picked all the right players and everybody else is trying to sign the players or bring in that I've already got, then great. I'm in a great position. I'll be able to save free transfers if I avoid injured players as well. And it just puts you a little bit higher than everyone else then. So, yeah, for me, it's probably you're going to look at last season a little bit, how they finished, maybe the last end of the season, last 6 game weeks, and take a few punts, I guess, as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got some new rule changes as well. So we can sort of store up to 5 transfers, and we can carry them through a wild card. So suddenly there's this new strategy that could come into play where you could store up, 3, 4 transfers, wild cards. And then you can sort of have a mini wild card out of it almost. And so it's a whole new level of strategy, I think.
Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant with it because I feel like it might just make you hold a transfer when you should be making that transfer. I mean, last season we didn't have it and it went really well for me. So to try and change a strategy, for me, I think it might be a little bit of a banana skin. I do like the keeping what you've got stored through a wild card. I think that's a great change, and it will be big. However, I'm not falling into trying to store up as many transfers as possible.
I mean, I think so as well. I can see myself perhaps towards the end of the season or middle of the season when I've sort of got a settled squad. But I think early on, I'm going to want to leap on those bandwagons. And there's so many new players, new managers, new teams, and I think we should look at Leicester. So what I'll do is just before I put up what I've got some images I'll put up for people just listing from the FPL site. Everyone can look at that. Leicester defenders, Leicester midfielders, Leicester forwards. Before we do that, I just want to remind people of their fixtures though. It's a mixed bag, but there's some all right fixtures in there. They start pretty a tough one, especially with Leicester's track record against Tottenham, game week 1. But then they got Fulham away, Aston Villa at home, not too bad. Crystal Palace away, not too bad. Everton at home, that's pretty good. And then it moves into, from game week 6 onwards, it starts again bad, Arsenal away. Then they got Bournemouth at home, Southampton away, Nottingham Forest. I mean, this is a really good run, actually. Nottingham Forest at home, Ipswich away, Manchester United away. So whilst some people might look at those initial fixtures and think, oh, that's mixed, I'll wait and see. Come game week 7, suddenly I think Leicester are going to be in people's teams. So, yeah, I mean, what's your initial thoughts about Leicester before we look at some of the players?
Yeah, so going on fixtures, I did have a little look as well, and I feel like if you've got a Leicester player, it's not going to be a mainstay in your team. You're probably going to use it as a slight rotation, maybe your 8th attacker, maybe your 5th defender. So looking at the first 10 fixtures, I think 7 of them are decent, albeit only 3 of them are at home.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and spin a narrative that let's get a Leicester player. I've not got one in my team, by the way. But you could argue to spin a narrative to get a Leicester player in for a rotation. I think it's going to be tough for all the promoted teams. I'm going to be quite big on targeting the promoted teams, and I don't want to say it being a Leicester fan, but it is going to be a tough year. I feel like we're going to struggle scoring goals. Looking at last season, we had Jamie Vardy got 20 goals, Steffi Mavididi got 13, and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall got 12. And we've lost Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall to Chelsea.
Yeah.
So initially, and Jamie Vardy's obviously another year older. So I feel like we're going to struggle scoring goals.
Yeah.
Defending, We had the best defensive record in the Championship,
Okay.
I believe. We conceded 16 less than Ipswich, 22 less than Southampton.
Yeah.
So on paper, we could be a solidish team that would be hard to break down. Although, and I go over and over when I speak to my friends and speak to other people, it is a different beast, this Premier League compared to
Yeah.
the Championship. It is so vast, the difference in quality. So it is going to be a tough year.
Yeah, I mean, I was, for example, I was thinking. I mean, another promoted side, Ipswich, for example, they've got Leif Davis on the on the wing on the left. So he was exploited by Championship sides last season, but the first game week he's got Salah against him.
Welcome to the Premier League.
Exactly. So that's an example of the difference. So you've got whoever's playing on the right wing on whatever Championship side, but then suddenly they're not Mo Salah, and suddenly you've got Mo Salah against you. So that shows the difference. And this is going to be the same with Leicester. They've faced many a good striker in the Championship, but any as pinpoint accuracy as Son perhaps in game week 1.
I'm going to hazard a guess that
No. And then on top with Leicester, we've had a change of manager. We've lost Maresca to Chelsea, so it's all a new, again, an unknown. I've kind of kept an eye on a little bit of the pre-season schedule for Leicester, and Steve Cooper, the new manager, is not tweaked it. He's done really well. He's kind of used a few formations and a few tactics that worked well last season, tweaked it, put his own spin on it. So hopefully it's not going to be too alien to the players.
No, and obviously he has Premier League experience with Nottingham Forest, and he was a tough cookie at times. They stayed in the Premier League. They were a tough team to beat at times. They could be an easy team for some to beat, but it does bode well that you think he'll be a bit more pragmatic rather than a sort of a gung ho approach. You might see some low blocks and
yeah, I think listening to
a few more local podcasts on Radio Leicester, they found that Steve Cooper in his first season at Forest did try a few different tactics and did find that the more open, expansive play didn't work, which you're probably referring to.
Yeah.
And he did become a little bit more defensive minded, pragmatic, and that did work. And like you say, he kept them up 1 year. He did get sacked at Christmas following season, but he was outside the relegation zone. So ultimately, I think an appointment like Steve Cooper could just help us for a season or two, just to stabilise a little bit.
Okay, well let's have a look at some players that we consider, because as we said, I mean, as you were saying, it's as a part of a rotation, it could even be good to start with a Leicester player on the bench somewhere. But also, I do think from game week 7, I think we could be playing a Leicester player, and we've got a bit of time to find out who. And it could be a 5th, 4th even defender. So looking down the defender list, I'll read out the names, and then you let me know if any you might be considering, especially when their fixtures do become particularly good. Got Justin, who's been pretty good, injured a lot, but he was very good in the Premier League. Christiansen, Ricardo. So I mean, you will have the knowledge about some of these, whether they're off on loan or anything like that. Connor Cody as well is there. Face, the Belgian international. Coley, Sutar, Thomas and Vestergaard, and most of them are actually 4 million. Vestergaard and Face and Cody there. So out of all of this list, if you were to get a Leicester defender, which one would you get?
Well, we've made a couple of new signings. Caleb Okoli is a 23-year-old young lad signed from Atalanta, Serie A.
Okay.
He's highly thought of in the youth scene in Italy. He's been spoke about joining some of the senior squads as well. So he's going to be a centre half. He's not more of an attacking player. So even though he might be a good player for us Premier League wise in the long run, FPL I probably don't think so. One of the tweaks that Cooper's made, I believe, is he likes an overlapping fullback only on one side of the pitch. So he likes to keep it solid one side, and the other side will be bombing forward. And he's tried in pre-season on the right side of the pitch and the left side of the pitch. So for me, you can't really pinpoint who's that attacking fullback is going to be. I imagine it will be either Ricardo or James Justin.
Yeah.
But again, it's not certain at the minute.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, of course, Ricardo Pereira had been was very successful in the Premier League as well. So yeah, that's a really good bit of advice actually, because I am thinking I've just look at those fixtures, game week 7 onwards. I just think a Leicester defender could be great. Game week 6 is sort of a good wildcard time as well. So yeah, we will know that. We'll have 5 or 6 games. We'll see Justin and Pereira, which one is bombing forward, which one isn't. I think we'll know by then. So yeah, Vestergaard's got a bit of a goal threat to him. Face, could as well. Which of the, I mean, am I wrong in that? Have they not got a goal threat?
I mean,
He's a big lad, Yannick Vestergaard. Face scored a couple last season. I wouldn't be going there just because they didn't really show their goal scoring abilities in the Championship. So it's going to be twice as hard in the Premier League. So for me, if I was going to pick a defender, it would just be that one attacking fullback that pops his head out and says it's me.
Right, yeah, excellent. That's good advice. I'm going to make a mental note of that. Definitely game week 7. I'm on that philosophy. Let's have a look at their attack, their midfielders and forwards. So the midfielders, they've got quite a few midfielders there. Mavididi, you mentioned, very successful last season. Cordova Reed from Fulham has joined them. He could be successful. Fatawi, McAtee, Didi, Sumari, Chowdhury, Goldring. These are a lot of 4.5s here. Marcel and Winks as well, former Spurs player. And up front, Vardy, who is still playing. Daka, who I remember not being a great FPL asset, and Cannon. I don't know anything about Cannon there. So yeah, looking at those midfielders. To me, Cordova Reed could be one to watch, and Mavididi maybe. But yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on them as FPL assets?
I mean, the couple of signings that
We have made is Cordova Reed from Fulham, obviously an established player. He's not been on fire in FPL, but he's steady little returns maybe in the easier fixtures. We've also signed Michael Golding from Chelsea. Now he's only an 18-year-old young boy, part of the Dewsbury Hall deal. Great potential. Apparently, he played in the same youth setup as Mainu, and he was given the armband over Mainu. So maybe in the long term, he may be good, but probably not at the minute. For me, one of the big signings that we did make was permanently signing Fatawu from the loan deal. He was only on loan with us last year, so we've made his signing permanent. He's only 20. Electric pace, really quick. He can cut inside and have a shot with his left foot. He likes to play on the right, but he's left-footed, so he can cut inside and shoot. He can get to the byline, pull back crosses. So for me, if I was going to take a little punt, it may be on Fatawu.
Okay, right, yeah. I mean, that is good. So he'll be unknown to the majority of FPL managers. So that's one, someone to definitely monitor there ahead of that good fixture run that does prop up for Leicester as well. But yeah, looking at the forwards though, I mean, are they really going to go into this with? I mean, I know Vardy did well at the Championship level, but with his age and possibilities of injuries and just pace, I mean, he's not the player he was, I presume, anymore.
No, he's
Obviously, he can still put the ball in the back of the net. He did it 20 times last year. But I think, the fans at Leicester are just waiting on a couple of signings, really. We probably are looking at an attacking midfielder, maybe a marquee centre-forward. Jamie, but like you say, Jamie Vardy, I'm pretty certain he'd be great off the bench for the last 20 minutes to cause havoc and maybe score a goal. Patson Daka, again, like you said, he didn't light the Championship on fire last year, so I don't believe he's going to score goals for us. So it is, again, maybe a little wait and see to see who we do sign. Tom Cannon, another good young player. We signed him from Everton, but they're talking about sending him back on loan to a Championship team. So for me, none of the forwards would be making it near my team at the minute.
No, and also with the midfielders, with the I mean, I was looking forward to Dewsbury Hall. Two things. As an FPL manager, I was looking forward to Dewsbury Hall at Leicester, so I thought, wow, okay, because he was been great for Leicester. As a Brighton fan, I was also looking forward to the prospect of him coming. But as with most transfers, and as Leicester are finding out now,
Chelsea spoil it, don't they?
Yeah. So Chelsea have taken your manager and taken Dewsbury Hall, So welcome to our world. but that's just the way it is. So, but he will be a big miss, won't he, for Leicester? I would imagine.
Yeah, he was great. He came through the youth system at Leicester. He did his dues going out on loan when he was a little younger, but in the last season or so, he's really stamped his authority on the team, scored goals, assisted a lot as well, played really high up in the Maresca midfield. He'll be a big miss. But we do have financial difficulties, and there's talk of points being deducted and whatnot. So I think getting rid of Dewsbury Hall, because he's an academy asset, it's all profit, is probably something that the club needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about the possibility of points deductions. Obviously, that's affected a number of clubs last season as well. I mean, I would say that if they weren't getting points deducted, I would say Leicester possibly got the best chance out of the three promoted sides to actually stay up, just because their experience of some of their players and the manager as well, with the experience of those sort of relegation tussles. But with the points deduction as well, I mean, it must be like, it's like Luton fans before, years ago when they got relegated from the league essentially because of this. It just must be quite disheartening as a Leicester fan.
Yeah, it's uncertain. Like I'm trying to look on the bright side. The local press have kind of not been speaking about it for the last couple of weeks. So I'm kind of hoping that it will just get pushed under the carpet. Not pushed under the carpet, but the sanctions we had last year financially were enough, and it doesn't get brought over into the Premier League. I think if we do, like you say, Joe, that's going to near enough make a tough task impossible. However, if we're on an even playing field, I do think, like you say, we've got the experience in the squad, the manager. I think we have got a better chance than the other two.
Oh, definitely. You still there? Just checking.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just suddenly cut out slightly, but it's fine now. Yeah. You mentioned about strikers as well. You're going into the season with Vardy, Daka, Cannon at the moment, but Cannon might go out on loan. Daka hasn't impressed. What in the sort of local press, the local fans, who are the names in consideration for that they might bring in as a striker? Who they want to bring in?
I've not got much for you, Joe, to be honest.
There was a foreign lad who played over in Italy, but I feel like he either got signed up on a longer term contract. Okay. I think he was an Argentinian lad. So no, I've not read anything in the press about who could come in. But I do feel like for us to stay up, we're not going to keep a lot of clean sheets. I'm certain we're not going to win a lot of 1-0 games. So we are going to need somebody that can put the ball in the back of the net.
Okay, right, yeah. Oh.
Hello everyone, yes, sorry to interrupt your video, but you're going to love this. There is a new FANTEAM game. FANTEAM are back for the Premier League season. And guess what? This game has an unlimited budget, an infinite budget. This is Fantasy Unchained. Have you ever thought, could I just have Salah and Haaland and Son and Palmer and Nkunku and Isak and Watkins and Raya and White and Saliba? Well, you can in FANTEAM. It's absolutely incredible. What a game. And we're going to be talking about it for a couple of minutes with Gianni. Gianni, whenever we have FANTEAM, we roll you out because we know you love it.
Yeah, I've been playing it for years. I always play the season-long game, and I sometimes get involved with like the monsters, but this is a new game, and when I saw it straight away, I was like, oh, yeah. £3 to play. That's fun. I mean, it's an interesting one because many will just say pick the most expensive players. And for my draft, like I'm going heavy on premiums. But of course, the team that wins it will be a slightly different team, and there'll be some differentials and some nuggets of information of players like Cole Palmer last year, where you go, yeah, actually, he's a really good option, even though he's 5 million. So I'm starting quite safe, and it will just be about being active in the transfer market. We get a weekly transfer. We get 2 wild cards. We can only pick 3 players from every team, though. So it's not like you can load up on just Man City and Arsenal.
Yeah, it's basically the same as the normal FANTEAM games if you played that before, but unlimited budget. So it's a pretty good quirk, isn't it? As Gianni said, £3 entry. There's a 30k prize pool, and there's, I think, 5k going to first. So pretty good. Let's have a look at Gianni's team. So Gianni, let me just read it for podcast listeners. You've got David Raya in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Ben White, Pedro Porro at the back, Heung-min Son, Mohamed Salah, Bukayo Saka, and Cole Palmer in midfield. And up front, you got Watkins, Haaland, and Isak. And then on the bench, you've got Nick Pope, Gvardiol, Foden, and Van Dijk. Not bad at all. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I've gone for expensive players to start the season. You could argue like, so, there's more expensive players than a Porro out there, but for me, it's a case of where do you distribute your funds? Do you go triple Arsenal defence or do you cover Arsenal attack? Where do you put your Man City players? Do you start your Man City players game week 1? So I've got Gvardiol and Foden benched, but almost certainly they're going to be set and forgets from game week 2 onwards. Obviously, Arsenal defence double up makes sense early on. Yeah, I mean, look, I think captaincy is going to be the big thing that splits many teams in this game. There's going to be a ton of teams that look just like mine. I appreciate that. And look, I'm going to tinker between now and game week 1 to maybe find a couple of differentials. Maybe a Jota or a Kulusevski, I don't know. But captaincy is a big one. And a lot will just set and forget on Salah and Haaland. But I'm looking to probably
I
play
can see you're on Isak,
captaincy.
which is, as a Newcastle fan, is making me happy.
I feel like no matter what fantasy game you're playing, game week 1, Newcastle home Southampton is going to be a good one. And Isak scoring pre-season, so sharp at the end of last year. And also what I love about Isak, same as Haaland and Salah, to be fair, they've had a summer off, Ed. And I think come game week 1, that's going to matter.
Absolutely. Well, look, there is a new custom offer at FANTEAM if you've never played before. You're going to get, if you sign up and deposit and then enter the £3 unlimited season game we've just talked about, you're going to get a free £10 entry to the 200k EPL season game, the mega one I'll talk about in a second, and two £2 Pick 6 tickets. If that doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry. Basically, if you sign up, good things will happen and go into your account. So absolutely huge. And that game that you get a free £10 entry to is the fantasy season game, a £200,000 minimum guaranteed budget, 40k to first place. That's £10 entry, starts the 16th of August. Not bad, is it? I mean, with no Sky, Gianni, no Sky going on this season, is this the alternative to FPL to play alongside it?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, there's a ton of managers out there that will be disappointed to see the Sky game go. Many of them played it alongside FPL. If you are looking for that second game to adopt, then yeah, FANTEAM is so similar to FPL, but a few different prices and, obviously a few different rules depending on the game you're playing, but it's a great alternative. I've always played them side by side and it gives a nice variation. If you're disappointed with one team, your other one often bangs. So, swings and roundabouts and all that.
Absolutely. As normal, please, 18 plus, do gamble responsibly, gamble aware, all that sort of stuff. But link is in the description. Let's get going.
Well, let's have a look at your team reveal now.
Okay.
So this is your first draft. Obviously, it's going to change. I revealed one when the game launched. It's already changed. But my team is quite similar to yours, so I felt good considering you finished 145th last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the names. So we haven't done it we've done it in the whole squad format really. So we haven't done it, specifically here's the game week 1. But we'll go through that as we go. So I'll read that out for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, and then we'll go through player by player and from the back first. So you've got your goalkeepers. You've gone for 2 4.5s, Flecken and Henderson. At the back is quite a cheap back line. But solid players there. Morello at Nottingham Forest, Mikolenko, Concert at Aston Villa, Anderson at Palace, and Taylor Hull-Bellis there from Southampton as well. All starters, lots of good fixtures there. You've got Gibbs White, Gordon, Eze, and Kunku. So quite a sort of lot of mid-price midfielders there with Salah, who's your vice captain. Up front, you've got Isak, who's your captain. Haaland, you've gone for. So it's a Salah Haaland draft. And Pedro, who was injured and so didn't make Brighton's tour of Japan, but is back now training. So I believe Brighton have got a friendly with QPR coming up very soon. So I would, we'd all hope he plays that and scores and does well. So yeah, going from the... I mean, overall, though, I just look at it overall. The Salah Haaland thing, is that why you've gone for such a cheap backline? You're not interested in the likes of Gvardiol or an Arsenal defender?
Oh, Joe, I'm very interested.
Yeah, you've just got to make sacrifices, haven't you? So for me, at the minute, I have got both the big hitters in. I feel like it'll be a lot easier for me to take Salah out and upgrade a couple of other players, which I do have my eye on a few others that I'm a little upset that I can't get in the team, and I can talk about them later. But I just feel like I want to have a good solid start to the year. I don't want to get hurt by Haaland scoring a hat trick in game week 2 at home to Ipswich. So I feel like a safe, albeit maybe a little boring way to start the season would be just to go with the 2 big hitters.
Yep.
Liverpool have got, a good 5 first fixtures, 3 at home. Holland historically starts quick. So yeah, at the minute, even though I'm flirting with other players, as we all are doing, and kind of thinking in my head about how I can change it. But ultimately, I'm probably 75% certain that I'll go with Haaland and Salah.
Okay, we'll start at the back first with goalkeepers. You've gone for Fleck and Henderson. That's also my double up as well.
Okay.
There are other options. You could just go for one more expensive one and a sort of a non-player. You could go for something like Flecken and his backup, who's 4 million. But you've decided to go for sort of 2 there. What's your rationale there, and why these 2?
Well, again, this pick is a little uncertain for me as well at the minute. I have gone for a good, I think it's Palace and Brentford for the first 12 weeks. They rotate really well. I know Palace had some good underlying stats last season as well defensively. Brentford were average. But my other option would be to knock one down to a 4 million, stick with a 4.5 and just go all out. My worry with 2 4.5s rotating, Joe, is that you get the big haul when they're playing away from home.
Yeah. So
to stop that, there is a chance where I'd just go with one goalkeeper, and it might even be the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper if the new, I can't remember his name, is it Miguel?
Yeah, Miguel. He's everyone talks about how huge he is. He's gone from his current height, which is 6.8, to be talked up so highly. Is
he about 7.74 now?
Now in my head, he's like this 10-foot giant ogre. but he's big.
But they had really good underlying stats last season defensively. However, they let in more goals than they should do. So if he shows that he's fairly safe in pre-season, he could just be my number 1 goalkeeper as well. So that position for me is a wait and see. I've got these 2 in at the minute, but it could change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting on that as well, because I'm sort of tentatively looking at a game week 4 wild card. So I'm looking to really maximise the 3. Okay. And so, I would go for whoever's going to be the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper, because they've got 3 good fixtures. They're one of the few, in fact, they're one of the only teams with 3 fixtures where they could get a clean sheet, with Bournemouth at home, Wolves at home, and Southampton away. These are good first 3 fixtures. But other than that, I do like Brentford. A lot of people say Brentford's fixtures are bad, and they sort of are. But if you're going to rotate him, but also for me as going for a game week 4 wildcard possibly, Crystal Palace at home, Southampton at home, and hope for the best with some saves against Liverpool. It's not bad, because you can get Flecken and his backup at 4 million.
That's good.
And also with West Ham, you can get
can't you, as well?
Yeah. So you can do that. You can the 2 sides there. You can do that, but with West Ham's quite a bit trickier. Where Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and Man City. So you probably wouldn't go near them the first few fixtures.
Maybe not, but
I did hear that. Is it Areola's maybe potentially moving over to Saudi? Or there's some rumours. So for me, if I was going to go for 4 million, maybe Fabianski could just be an easy one where he could turn into their number 1.
Oh, well, now you said that. I would that you could get 2 4.0 goalkeepers, and hope for the best. Hopefully, his backup is cheap.
But I'm penciling in saving 0.5 million if I need to upgrade. Maybe Pedro if he doesn't make full fitness up to a 6 million.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's what I've sort of penciled in. If I need 500,000, that's where it's going to be. Let's have your defence then. So you've got Murillo there. We talked about the Nottingham Forest defence. Mikalenko, Concert, Anderson, and Harwood-Bellis. So, do you want to sort of mention why you picked those ones? I mean, we know why you've gone cheap, because you've got Salah and Haaland, but why these cheap ones in particular?
I think for me, again,
I've tried to have a good mix of fixtures where I've got 2 good home fixtures at least every game week, and just the rotations of these teams, more the teams than the players. The players can change, anyone from each team that may show a little bit more form in pre-season. I've just gone for my initial gut feeling of which players from which team. I would really like, again, to find another 0.5 million to upgrade Anderson. to Munoz
Oh.
because he gives a lot more attacking threat. He's one of the ones that I'm pretty certain I do want to try and get there. And you might tell me, is Barco an option at Brighton?
I was going to say one of your options there, and this is, this would apply. I mean, this is something that everyone watching is going to think, oh, how can I get another 4.5? And two 4.0s opening this season is not actually that preposterous, because for the first time we've got a number of starters. Barco, yes, he will start. Stupinan's not going to be back until sort of September, October, but at the earliest, really, probably maybe September. So I think you're going to get at least the first few fixtures from Barco, who rotates very well with Mykolenko. Which is very handy. So you can actually, I mean, Mykolenko or Barco, they play each other in game week 1, and you just take your pick which one. They're both attacking fullbacks. At home to Manchester United, I think it's quite a good fixture for Barco. He's been on some set pieces as well over their pre-season tour. It's game week 3 against Arsenal when you don't want to play him, and then game week 4 and 5 if Stupinan's not back. He's got Ipswich and Nottingham Forest. So looking at Mykolenko, basically you definitely want to play Mykolenko game week 3, and hey presto, he's got Bournemouth at home.
There you go.
It does work out. I've kind of gone through the first probably 7, 8, 9 weeks, and you don't have to make too many sacrifices with those teams.
Yeah. So you could definitely do that, or you could just replace Harwood Bellis with Barco there. But yeah, you mentioned about Anson going up to Munoz as well. That's, get that attacking threat. Conser as well. He's someone who's been sort of in and out of my team. I don't know how I feel about him with the new bonus point system. I feel that if Aston Villa concede, I don't know if he's going to do very well. I think he's either going to be 2 points or 6 points for me. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I do. I feel like,
I know there's been lots of people that they've done the difference in points, haven't they, of the whole season from last year. And I feel like, again, I don't want to overhype it. Nobody lost or gained, I don't think, a double figure haul.
Yeah.
All the defenders are going to be in the same boat where they're going to reduce. All the attackers and midfielders are going to maybe gain a couple of points over the season. Okay. In a nutshell, I'm just going to I'm not going to be ignorant and ignore it completely, but I'm not going to let it affect my decisions too much. The better defenders are still going to score more bonus points than the not so good ones. And if we can find a couple of 4.5 gems with clean sheets and good fixtures, then that's a strategy I've gone for. I'm not saying it's the right strategy, because you could go no Salah, and one of my no Salah drafts will definitely have Trent in there. I love Gvardiol as an option. Yeah. He was one of the players that helped me so much last season. So I feel I'm not been a good manager, have I, keeping him in the team? He's going to be knocking on my door soon, asking me why he's not in my team. But no, there's definitely some real good upside defenders that I've not got, and I'm wary of not having.
Yeah, looking at the difference with my team, because it is similar. I've got a very similar setup, but I have spent a tiny bit more in defence. So I have got Gvardiol, and I've got Porro as well, because I like the opening 2 fixtures. But I'm fairly certain I'm going to wildcard early. And I've also got Leif Davis from Ipswich, who's got a terrible opening, the worst you can imagine, Liverpool and Man City. But then it gets much better from game week 3, coincidentally when Porro fixtures go bad. So if I do wildcard early, I've got game week 3 covered. But yeah, I'm all of the players you've got here have been in and out of my team, because I like these 4.5s. There's so many of them this season, and they're all good. And Mykolenko, I do think is good. I thought, oh no, I mean, you can probably answer this better as a defender, but I thought the Everton's defence, is it just a narrative? Sean Dyche has got a solid back line there, and I just thought, can I really invest in Everton's defence? But I am, and you are as well. So, I mean, what?
Yeah, no, I think there is
some good data behind the defence. Like, we don't have to just make up a narrative on Sean Dyche. I think the stats are there to back it up. My only worry and concern with Everton could be that they've lost Decore, haven't they, to Villa?
Yeah.
And he was an integral part of the midfield, and defensive midfield duties as well. And then if Branthwaite moves over to United or moves off, then it does change the whole.
Yeah. Was it
structure.
Anana has gone?
Sorry, I'd say Anana. My bad.
I thought, well, no, because I do like Decore actually. I was thinking,
No,
I might
Anana.
get him at some point. Yeah. Anana, yeah. But yeah, that's a massive miss, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. So again, there's a few little question marks over Mykolenko. However, he did get forward a little bit and try to create. So it's one of them ones where I'm pretty certain Sean Dyche has got a backup ready, and he's going to keep the same philosophy.
Yeah,
it's worked for him for so many years.
Okay. And moving to your midfield, so it's very similar to mine, but the key difference is because I've spent a bit more on defence. There's the rub that I've got to spend less on my midfield. So, for example, you've got Gibbs White. I've got to go have Hudson-Odoi. I can't afford Gibbs White. You've got Eze there. I can't really afford him. So I've gone down to Rodgers as a backup there from Aston Villa. But let's go through and then you talk about your midfield. So you've got Mo Salah there. You've got Eze, Kunku, Gordon and Gibbs White. So what are your sort of thoughts and issues about your midfield?
So the beginning of the season,
again, we don't have any data for this year to go off. So a safe option is to try and pick a few more penalty takers. Hence the reason why I've got Gibbs White in there. I do like Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah.
However, you would imagine Gibbs White will take the penalties. Yeah. I do Eze, a great player. Question mark is if he moves clubs, will that affect where he goes? If I pick him, probably will do. But again, if he stays at Palace, he'll be a good talisman and their penalty taker. I feel like Nkunku, he's scored a few goals in pre-season, but he has pedigree in a different league, and I feel like he is a little bit of a punt for me, especially with Maresca going as manager. He was injured a lot last year, but I feel like that's the punt that I'm willing to take, especially not being able to afford Palmer. I just want that little bit of Chelsea to try and offset what I'm going to lose on Cole Palmer. And then and Gordon in there as well with his good first few home fixtures. I'm sure they'll have a hatful against Southampton. I'm really big on targeting the promoted teams, especially early on.
Yeah.
And then you just hope that Tottenham are a little bit leaky as well with their game. But I'm similar to you, Joe. I've kind of got I like blocks of fixtures, so I like, especially when there's a block of 4 fixtures and 3 are at home, and if the 3 are good home games as well, I've kind of got a little bit of a plan of where to look and see how the season progresses. And Aston Villa in game week 4, for me, seems a good easy option to go from Newcastle to Aston Villa players if they're performing.
Yeah, I mean the only. I've got Gordon as well, but there's lots of talk at the moment that he might go to Liverpool. And I mean, obviously nothing official, and I don't even know whether any of it's true or not. But I mean, that would be huge for Newcastle's attack. But it would present the option of perhaps going for a cheaper Newcastle midfielder, and then still having that policy. So getting Barnes, for example. But also I was just going to say with Gordon, the other side of that, Gordon going to Liverpool suddenly might mean suddenly we've got 7.5 million Gordon at Liverpool.
Maybe. I think if he did move, I would just ignore him. I'd see how he gets on. I'm sure his minutes would be reduced if he was over at Liverpool. Harvey Barnes, ex-Leicester City player, really good player. A little bit injury prone, but if he keeps fit, he'd be a great replacement for Gordon. I feel like if he did move, I'd probably just change Gordon slightly, and I might even go for another 6.5 million. I've got my eye on a few others. Bailey, I really like at Aston Villa. Rodgers, I'm sure everybody will have Rodgers in their team at some point this year when he shows that he's going to get some minutes. And Johnson at Tottenham as well. He did well at the end of last season, made the little right forward spot his own. And then I could probably spend a little bit more on defence on somebody else as well. So again, as we said all along, it's a wait and see. Every kind of week, every day is there's some new news that we're processing in our head.
Yeah, I mean, I actually hope he does go to Liverpool, because then I won't have him, and then like you, I can think, I can maybe get Johnson in, or Kulusevski even's done well for Spurs opening up, and of course Barnes comes into the option, Bailey. You just mentioned them all. I mean, suddenly you can afford them all, and you've got another million to spare, which, as you were talking about your defence, you can pep up your defence a bit with that. Just finally, we'll talk about the front line as well. Probably not much to say about Haaland. That hasn't been said. Obviously, he's been priced accordingly because he is good. Isak will be in many teams, and he's your captain, my captain as well. That was probably the first move I made when the game launched. Get Isak in, put the armband on him. And then you've got Pedro as well. So if you decide to maybe not have Pedro, who would you go for instead of him?
I'm really, really hoping that he is going to be fit, because when he's on the pitch, he should take penalties. And when he's on the pitch, he is dangerous. And it's just his injury record that lets him down. So I'm just, again, if he's picked up a niggle in pre-season, it's not good news. I know what that actually means as a player. You're not having a full pre-season. You're not training.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of, fighting an uphill battle straight away. So fingers crossed he is fit. If he's not, I'm looking at a 6 million striker, just so I don't change my structure too much. Probably Muniz.
Yeah.
Muniz at Fulham.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Half decent opening fixture.
Yeah. Fulham's fixtures are very good. Muniz, he's very popular at the moment. Another option is Adam Armstrong at Southampton. He's 5.5, so you can stick with that same pricing. Bad first fixture against Newcastle, but it's really good thereafter, and did well in the Championship last season. And of course Chris Wood at Nottingham Forest, but obviously you've got Gibbs White and Chris Wood. That might be a bit much, but then that might mean that you can maybe not have Gibbs White if you have Chris Wood, that kind of thing. So it's I think it goes back to what we were saying at the start. There's so much up in the air. All of these things could change, and I haven't seen anyone have a team where they think, I'm definitely going to go in with this. Locked in. I can't see anything locked in.
I don't think you can do.
I think, even Haaland, there's talks that he's picking up a little niggle, and he's being managed a little bit over there. So even he could, if you had an extra 6 million to spend, if you downgraded him to Watkins, it would be like Christmas, wouldn't it? But again, I hope it isn't, because I love the price that they've put on him, because it's just split everybody's thought process completely.
Yeah.
I think I don't think he is 6 million more, or worth 6 million more than Watkins, and 6.5 more than Isak. I don't think that's the case, but I think they had to put that price on just for the sake of the game.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy that they have done. And for me, it's an opportunity to go with him, and maybe he is a lot less owned, and if he does score a fair few goals in one of the first few opening fixtures, then we're laughing.
Yeah, definitely, because he was owned and captained by everyone last season, so it was immaterial, and it was coming to the point where if you didn't captain him, you just hoped he didn't score, and if he did, you just shrugged and thought, oh well.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for joining me. It's been really, really good to get your thoughts on the team, and especially Leicester as well, who I think a lot of FPL managers will start considering after a few game weeks, once we get a sort of a steer on them. Good luck with the season. And just a reminder for everyone, do press that like button, do subscribe as well, and do check out the offers at Fantasy Football Scout members area, especially the new app as well. Matt, thanks so much for joining me. Take care. See you soon.
And thank you, Joe. Good luck, everyone.